All right, to finish off my color logo variation. The reason these are called color variations is because we're not making new vectors. You can color in Illustrator, but that makes a color vector, right? This is using the black shapes from Illustrator, no strokes from Illustrator, and then doing all color variations in a raster program as layer styles that are linked to the vector and therefore perfectly clean at any scale. So what I want to do is maybe play with the bark color of this. So basically it's selecting just particular shapes from my logo. I'm going to add this one in, holding down Shift, selecting all of these, but not selecting that shape, right? And then I can duplicate them onto a new layer, and then I can change the layer styles of that. So for instance, very simple, I can fill them with brown, and I can play with how dark that brown is. Kind of that reddish brown. There we go. And then I can blend that in. So the white of my logo is coming from that offset behind it, right? But now I am doing what's called local color to the logo. I'm choosing certain parts of the actual black vector shape to be filled with certain colors. But I like to have that overall kind of gradient coming through, even slightly. I can even set this to dissolve and then just take its opacity down a little bit. So everything has that kind of grainy paper texture. All right. So now if I'm happy with that, I make sure I understand how I got there, and I check it on all backgrounds. So that's how it looks on black, that's how it looks on gray, that's how it looks on white. There are other offsets you can use, so I'll just show you that. So you want to understand what layers are turned on and what are turned off. So this is the offset I'm using. It's just a big white circle, right? Remember, I could also just play with an offset of the stroke. As long as it's white and on the outside, maybe I like that better. Having the background paper or background show behind. That's actually kind of nice. So how would that look on gray? It would look like that. How would it look on white? It would look like that. Is it all making sense? Again, all without rasterizing your vectors. But I think I'm just going to go for the cleaner. That's my big offset. What if I don't want it to be hard-edged on the outside? So I'm going to go to Effects for my circular offset, and I'm going to turn off the stroke. And I'm going to, I have to turn off this one too. There we go. And I'm going to play with a drop shadow instead. Now a drop shadow is something we're very familiar with. So if I use the drop shadow settings, I have here a gray drop shadow, and you can't obviously see it on a black background. But I can see it on a gray background, and I can see it on a white background, right? But what I like to do for an offset, offsets are almost always light. So I change it from multiply mode, which is the default, to normal mode, and from something dark to something light. And I set its opacity, you have to hit OK a lot when you're using layer styles, to 100%. And the reason this looks so weird is because the distance, it's for a project I was doing, is way off. So I can move that distance closer. I can play with the size. And this will be how you do a soft offset. Soft edged. You can spread it in different ways. And this is different than dissolve. You can add what's called noise to it. Noise. For everything to match. And then I can decide, well, do I like it with the soft offset, or do I like it with the harder offset, or do I like it with both? So all of these are options that are available to you that can be turned on and off at any time. Make sense? Really good if you're making a t-shirt design, right? Because that can go on black shirts, white shirts, yellow shirts, pink shirts, all of it. Okay, now to print it, you are not allowed to print on black or on gray, right? You have to print it on white because I don't want to waste the ink just printing a background, flat color. And there's various reasons why fine art printers don't do a great job at just flat, huge swaths of big flat color. So if this is my color logo, how do I save it? I say File, Save As. I save it as a PSD, but not as a black vector stump, but as a color vector stump to the desktop. If there's any kind of annoyance of digital graphic design, it's that you end up with lots and lots of files to organize and manage for all your variations. But if you think about it, this PSD is the PSD to rule them all, right? Because this PSD has your vector in it as a smart object that can be outputted at any size. And it has every possible variation going back to your black shape logo. Every combination of offset, every combination of color you might want is all in that PSD. So now, how do we make this online? I turn off that background, but the offset's still there, right? And then I say File, Save a Copy as a color PNG. And that is the third requirement for assignment 4. And I mark that as orange. So my 2 orange files, my online PNGs, they need to still go into Canvas along with my refined sketch. And then, how do I make it print ready? Well, if this is my final, I might even decide, you know what? I'm going to add a drop shadow to it on white, just so you can see the drop shadow. But I'm going to make it a dark drop shadow just for when I print it, right? And I'm just going to close that distance a little bit and close that size a little bit. So just that soft, because I want that kind of echoing white behind it. Okay, now this is what I want you to be aware of. Because we grew offsets around our original shape, now you might select all the things you used for coloring and put them in a group. So these are the color variations. If you turn those off, there's no logo. Underneath that is your smart object black shape logo with the offset that you liked for it. It's showing up on different surfaces, right? But we turn that off, we turn the color one on, and now I am going to flatten it and save it as a TIFF, right? So first, I'll just update my PSD really quick. Just File, Save. Now I'm going to say Layer, Flatten the image, and that's dangerous, so always do these 2 things in rapid succession. Notice when I flattened it, the dissolve became a lot cleaner, and that's what I like about it. Then you're going to say File, Save As, and you're going to put PR in front of it. Capital PR for print ready. And we're going to save it as a TIFF, a flattened TIFF print ready file with LZW always. And that we mark as yellow. So you can print 2 logo vectors or 2 vectors for your midterm portfolio if you want, but what I would do is choose between them. Okay, now I have that TIFF, right? And it's 7.5 by 9.5 by 350. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer. And I'm going to fill it with white. And I'm going to use this to make all my print ready files for the midterm. So I double click on this. and I move it up. That's my first, right? Now I go to my assignments folder, and I pick the other assignments I want. So I want you to print, I'm requiring you to print at least one as a, one that comes from a vector, right? One print. So this was my assignment 2. This is my assignment 2 PSD. All of these are vector shapes, and a lot of them have layer styles, right? Notice how everything's visible there. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the PNG that I saved of that, because that's high quality, and I'm going to move it into this. Just like I moved my vector EPS for the logo, I'm going to move my best PNG. That's the older PNG. Let me move my best one, which was this one, in. All right, now that automatically places it within the right pixel dimensions. And I remember I think of this as my matte, and then I hold down Option, and I make sure it doesn't distort. If it is distorting, I hold down Shift. For whatever reason, my Photoshop is set where if you hold down Shift, you distort. If you don't hold it down, it doesn't distort. But some of yours are the opposite. So I like it about there. There's already a visual weight. Actually, I'll make it a little bit bigger. I don't need to worry about adding offsets or anything to this, unless I wanted to, but that would be kind of changing the emoji design. I just hit return. Sure enough, it comes in as a smart object, right? This would be my second print ready. So let me just make sure it's kind of centered where I want. It's the right size. What do I have to do to make it print ready? I have to flatten it. So I say Layer, Flatten Image. That's dangerous. So I have to save as immediately. And this is my PR, but this is my emoji. Always have your name in there. Exercise 2. It's going to go to the desktop. It's a TIFF. It's going to have LZW. And then I mark it yellow. Now I have 3 options, all from vectors. What about a raster version? So what's another one I want to use? I'm going to do my landscape, or let's do my creaturescape, right? We worked hard on that. So that would be proving ground number 1. And I'm going to take the very best JPEG, right? And drag it right in so it becomes a smart object. Right? This is my matte. This is what's showing. There's obviously something wrong, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that background and I'm going to edit fill with white. And then I'm going to go to image, and I could do this with canvas size, but even easier to do it with image rotation. And I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise, right? That also rotates my smart object, but that's easy. I just do Command T and then hold down Shift so it locks to 90 degrees. Okay, now this is my matte. This is what's showing. This is my image. I can pull it all the way to the edges, but notice how it crops some of mine. So this is what's called floating. I want to float it so that there's a white border around it that makes the image itself look good within the map. Just like if it was a free floating illustration. And then I'm just going to move it up a tiny bit. All right, so this would be my creaturescape. Now, you want to zoom in on your creaturescape because remember, some of them were not made for print resolution. So that will remind you. Mine was made for print resolution, so it looks good. And then I say, File. Wait, I have to flatten it first. Layer, Flatten Image. Then File, Save As. PR, Karl, and this will be my creaturescape, or proving ground number 2, as a TIFF with LZW.